stuck inside that.
All right. Shalom Alechem. Peace be with you. Welcome back to the Jesus Way podcast, my friends, and to our very first live stream Jesus Way podcast episode. James and I are pumped, coming off a really great trip to Miami we did last weekend for some book events I had, and just met a ton of Jesus Way fans and followers who are stoked about the Jesus diet and all the stuff we've been talking about on the podcast. And so James and I said, since we can't film an episode this week because we were traveling, let's do a live Q&A because those are always fun. And boy, James, do we have a whole lot of questions about the Jesus diet.
And that's natural. We had so many questions when we started this journey ourselves, and we had to figure these things out. But luckily, there's so many incredible people that we were able to learn from. And through a lot of research and experimentation, feels like we have an amazing system in place for optimal health and spiritual connection.
Yeah, man, well said. James and I, as we've talked about on some of our, the last two Jesus diet episodes we released, we just can't really fully explain all the different benefits, the way that this dietary regimen has changed our lives for the better. Like you said, James, mentally, physically, and spiritually. There's just so much to talk about. And even in the 2 full, 2-hour podcast episodes we did, we feel like we've still kind of scratched the surface on all the amazing topics that we can get into. So I posted a Instagram story this week and said, hey, submit your questions for the Jesus diet, any questions you have. And you guys sent in a bunch of great questions we're going to get to. But in addition to that, we're also going to be taking live questions, of course. I already see some questions coming in. What type of protein do you eat for your 3 p.m. meal? So most of the questions you guys have are probably going to be answered from the questions that were submitted, because James and I found that there's probably, kind of 4 or 5 like main questions that just got asked by dozens and dozens of people. And so we'll address the main questions first based on these submitted questions, and then we'll take live questions for any other topics you guys want to ask us about or discuss. And so I guess let's just go ahead and jump right in, James. I got the questions right here. And let's start with at Gerd Boomer says, how do you get 400 to 500 grams of carbs from just fruit? So I mentioned in the second Jesus diet episode that I eat about 400, sometimes 500 grams of carbs a day. And what I didn't say was what those sources were from. So the questioner here is asking how I get that many carbs from fruit, but the answer is I don't get that many carbs from just fruit. Could you? Yeah, of course. But for me, it's, again, fruit up until at least 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And then from there, I have a protein shake, and then I have a dinner meal. And so I'm loading up on fruit and fruit juice, as we know, to get all the longevity benefits and metabolic benefits and oxidative stress reduction, all the great stuff we talked about. Cruising on fruit and fruit juice until 3, which probably puts me around 250 sometimes 300 grams of carbs, I would guess. And then I have my protein shake, which will have a banana and blueberries in it and honey as well. So that's probably another, 50 grams of carbs or something. And then I have a dinner meal usually with rice or some kind of noodle or a starch of some sort. So potatoes or rice or noodles of some sort. And I'm probably getting, a solid 100 grams of carbs from that dinner meal. And so that total adds up to about 400 or 500 a day. If I'm eating in a calorie surplus, it's closer to 500. If I'm at maintenance, it's closer to 400. So this is by no means the number that everybody should shoot for. And I want to be clear about that. As with all dietary regimens, right, James? You shouldn't just copy what somebody else does. You should take the guidelines and, parameters that someone's using that benefits them, and then apply those to your lifestyle and diet and experiment and test it out, right? There is no one size fits all identical exact approach to a diet. We all have different nutritional needs for a lot of different reasons. And so we need to experiment a little bit. So some of the questions here we're going to get into will maybe ask more specifics about this. But the last thing I want to say, James, before I kick it to you, if you want to say anything, is that people will ask a lot about the switching between carbs to fat and protein. We had one person ask, like, can I flip those and start the day with fat and protein? And so this is something you have to try out for yourself. What threshold do you feel best at with carbohydrates? For men who might weigh less than I weigh, you might not need 400 or 500 grams to feel really good. You might just need 300 grams. For a woman, you might need only 250 grams of carbs or something like that. The whole key is you've got to try out the diet and count your macros and nutrient partitioning for at least a few days so you know exactly what you're eating. And if you're not going to spend at least a few days counting your calories and macros, then you just can't really get a good measurable insight into what's working for you. So what I recommend is don't just shoot for 400 to 500 grams of carbs because I do it. I work out like a maniac. I love fitness and exercise. So I'm burning a lot of fuel doing that. If you don't work out as much as I do, you probably don't need that many carbs. So you should try, go to 250. The next day, go to 300. The next day, go to 350 and see where you feel the best. You might be surprised. We've told our friends this, right, James, here in Austin. You might be surprised that, hey, I feel really good at 300 grams of carbs. So that's my number. It's like, well, try 350, try 400 and see if you don't actually feel even better. Because a lot of our friends are like, dude, I thought 300 was the number, but when I get closer to 400, it's like even better. So it's different for everybody, but the overall rule system applies the same. Keep carbs as your only intake until, mid-late afternoon, and rely only on fruit and fruit juice, because that's the key to the Jesus diet. That's what makes the Jesus diet unique, is it really stresses a carbohydrate metabolism for the first half or 2/3 of the day so that we get all these incredible longevity, anti-inflammatory benefits that fructose and fruit actually brings to the human body. So I'll kick it to you, James, if you have anything you want to say in terms of like carbohydrate intake each day.
Well, the only thing I would add is that, carbohydrates are energy. And Aaron and I are both very active. And we would encourage everyone who is adopting this diet to increase your activity levels, to walk a lot,
Yes.
to move a lot. Because if you're stagnant and intaking all of this energy, it's you really want to get your metabolism going even more by various forms of fitness and activity. Because Aaron, you've talked about this. If you eat a bunch of fruit and you're not moving and you're stagnant, you can start going a little crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's such a thing as having too much energy, like a surplus of energy. And again, this is where you're going to get the most of the longevity and fat burning benefits of the Jesus diet. Is you don't just want to load up on fruit, but then stay stagnant all day, because your metabolism is primed for activity. So when you get your metabolism cranked up from eating a lot of fruit and you get all the fructose, right? You want to go walk or exercise or go for a jog or do something to move that energy, because that's what's going to put your mitochondria to good use, burning all those fatty acids out of your body and therefore burning body fat. This is the key, man, for losing weight on the Jesus diet. And we're going to do a 40-day Jesus diet challenge, which will have a weight loss challenge as part of it. For those of you who are struggling to lose weight, We want to show you just how powerful this protocol is for weight loss, because loading up on fruit and fructose primes the metabolism for fat burning in a way that nothing else really does. Not only are you getting all the longevity and fasting benefits, but you're getting a lot of fat burning benefits as well. So if you just eat fruit and sit around all day, you might not feel great because you've given your body a crap load of energy, but then you're not giving it a way to use that energy, right? We had somebody email us, James, who was saying, hey, I've tried the fruit thing. I went off meat and I tried eating some extra fruit, but it didn't make me feel that great. I'm just sitting around all day. I don't do any exercise. Like, what supplements can I take to feel better? And, we have to explain to this person, like, you can't out supplement a lack of exercise in your lifestyle. Supplements can't make up for all the benefits of exercise. If you guys want to be healthy and fit and live a long, healthy life, there is no substitute for exercise. It is something that God programmed into the human body as a necessity. The human body needs to move and be active because, number one, when your body's active and moving, even just walking, right, James? We walked like 30,000 steps some of these days. We were in Miami and felt amazing doing so. But it's clear that all of the blue zones in the world, these places where people live to be over 100, they have this one thing in common, which is that the elderly people still walk a lot every day. They walk everywhere. And that sends your body a signal when you're moving a lot, right? I want to be alive. I have a reason to be alive. And likewise, when you're sedentary and you're just sitting around on your couch or something, you're sending another kind of signal to your body, which is, I'm ready for death. I'm approaching the end of my life cycle. That's why I'm not moving anymore. So people who are alive and want to be alive move, right? So part of the 40-day Jesus Diet Challenge we're putting together is 10,000 steps a day. Because back in biblical times, right, James? People would have walked everywhere before there was cars and horse buggies and all that. Walking was the normal way of transportation. And so everybody was fit and healthy. And we know the Essenes had this incredibly long lifespan, in large part because we think they probably walked a lot, probably 20,000 steps a day, easy. And so 10,000 steps a day isn't that much to ask, I think, James.
It's not. And we know Jesus and the disciples were constantly walking from village to village, spreading the gospel. So this is biblically rooted. And we encourage everyone, if going to the gym is too much to ask, that's totally fine. Most of us are capable of walking and stretching. So if you can't do push-ups or pull-ups or anything like that, totally fine. Just start walking, walk first thing in the morning and walk in the evenings after your dinner, and you'll start seeing some amazing changes.
Yeah. Walking is kind of the new running in an interesting way. People are preferring walking now in like the biohacking space and the fitness space. Walking has kind of replaced jogging as the ultimate kind of fat loss tool, because walking is very muscle sparing, as is eating a high carbohydrate diet, as we covered in the last few episodes. When you're loading your body with carbohydrates, when your muscles are full of glycogen, your body will never break that down for glycogen, right? Your body doesn't need to break down muscle tissue to create energy when your muscles are already full of energy. So there's a lot of things that work in synergy when you put these pieces together. You're walking a lot, you're in a high carbohydrate state, which means your body is preferring fat burning. You're burning actual body fat. These are the things we want to strike the right balance, right? So don't just eat a bunch of fruit and not move. Don't just move a lot but not eat fruit. Do both is the idea. I see a quick thing here, James, I want to answer from Catherine. As a follow-up, she said, so banana and blueberries shake around 3, but what protein do you add to that shake? Well, here the Jesus way, we love organic muscle protein. I'll tell you that much. Obviously, that's James' company, but this is the way that I met James, was through organic muscle. I was looking for plant-based protein sources, and I found organic muscle as like the highest rated one I could find on the internet. So I ordered a big order of supplements from them, and James saw the inventory and was like, whoa, Aaron Abke, I watch your channel, man. And he sent me a really nice letter and a bunch of supplements, and then we ended up becoming best friends in Austin. So I was a big fan of organic muscle before I met James. So it's not just me, like, because he's my best friend or something. But organic muscle really is like the cleanest and purest plant-based protein source that I've found. And I've dabbled quite a bit in plant-based proteins. There's pea protein, soy protein. And I think organic muscle does a really good job at blending the right kind of plant sources But suffice to say, Catherine, the protein shake that I have around 3, I'll do usually water. I'll do maybe 1 or 2 eggs tops. I'll do banana, blueberries, honey, and then a couple scoops of plant-based protein. And then I do 2 scoops of creatine as well. We're going to get into supplements here in a second, but I just wanted to kind of address your question of, obviously, plant-based protein is the one we prefer because we don't want to consume any products that have come from cruelty towards animals. That's the axiom of the golden rule, right?
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Okay, this is for you, James. At Go Be a Tiger says, can you give some meal examples of what to eat at dinner that's not fat and carb together? So something to clear up there. But this is the probably number one question we hear from you guys, and even we're seeing it in the chat right now. Give us meal plans. Give us an idea of what kind of meals you eat. So I'll let you take this one away, James. And even if you want to like share your screen, go for it.
Sure. Let me see. Yeah, we got this question a lot, and it's a great question because we really touched on the fruit till 2 or 3, then a smoothie, but everyone wants to know what we eat for dinner. Can you guys see my screen?
I cannot. Oh, let me add it to the stage.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay, so we put together this dinner guide. So this is what Aaron and I do, and it's worked very well for us. But the basic structure is you want to start with 1 starch, vegetables, and a plant protein. Now, if you're cutting, you could reduce the starch a bit if you really want to lose weight. Yeah. If I'm trying to look extra ripped the following day, I'll have less starch or no starch and just vegetables and the plant protein. But
can you zoom in a bit, James, on your screen?
Yeah, sure. 1 second. Is that good?
That looks better.
I could zoom in even more. So the key is to keep the meal low fat, okay? So you don't want to combine a bunch of starch and carbs and fat, but we need to get the protein in. So we're combining starch, vegetables, and protein. So for seasoning, you can use tomato sauce. There's different low-fat Indian sauces. Olive oil is great, but really be very mindful of your oil intake. And then you could use a variety of spices. You're going to want to aim for 50 to 70 grams of protein. Hearty, but you don't want to overeat. But luckily, this combo is pretty filling. And then you want to walk after dinner, okay?
Yeah, it's always good if you can do that.
Yep. And then for those who are eating eggs, people who are transitioning from a more animal-based, you're welcome to add eggs to this. And we usually cook in a stir-fry format just because it's really easy to put everything together. But you're welcome to do it, each thing separately if you want to bake the food or lightly saute. But I personally like stir fries, and I know Aaron does as well.
Mm-hmm.
So here are some of our favorite protein sources for dinner. We really like seitan. We use this brand Upton Naturals, which is fantastic. They have a few different varieties.
Dude, you brought it.
I brought it. It's ready. Yeah. This is great. And I also love this. It's called Big Mountain. This is a soy-free tofu. It's absolutely delicious. It's wonderful. And it's only 3 ingredients: fava beans, water, and sea salt, which is incredible.
Epic.
And like 1 package of this is 64 grams of protein. And 1 package of this is 24. It's almost 80 grams it's like 75 grams of protein for 1 little package of this. So it's insane. We also have edamame pasta, which is delicious, probably the most delicious form of, non-traditional pasta, and extremely protein rich. You could have lentil pasta, you could have regular tofu, you could have regular edamame beans, you could have tempeh.
Really quick, James?
Yes.
On the edamame pasta, you guys, James found this amazing brand called One Bean. So ONEBEAN, One Bean. You can get it on Amazon, and it's edamame noodles. Edamame is really high in protein. And I think like just 1 serving of like a bowl of edamame noodles has 40 grams of protein just in the noodles. So we love eating edamame noodles with some seitan or tofu because you're getting multiple protein sources. And, if you're having that protein shake around mid-afternoon or something, and then you have a protein meal, like you're going to get at least what, 25 to 30 or maybe even 40 grams of protein in your protein shake. And then you only need another 40 or 50 grams tops, according to the Jesus Diet protocol at dinner time. So any one of these sources gives you more than enough protein. And I want to just stress this before we continue. Remember, guys, here is the overarching protocol of the Jesus Diet. The Jesus Diet is a high carbohydrate, moderate protein, low fat diet. That's why we want to keep fats low at dinner, because there's a kind of a phrase in the fitness world that says something like the fat you eat is the fat you wear. And it's not directly true that like the fat you eat immediately becomes body fat. It's not that simple, but it is true that the more fat you eat, the more likely you are to have body fat, and the less fat you eat, the less likely you are to have body fat. So when we keep our fat between 30 to 60 grams, we've given our body plenty of fat for all hormonal needs, but not so much fat that it's spilling over into our body fat stores and ruining our metabolism and all the longevity hormones that we want to create. So too much fat just disrupts all of the benefits of the Jesus Diet. So even at dinner, when you're having fat, it's not like, oh, just pig out and dump ranch all over your dinner. You still want to be moderating how much fat you're taking in. All right.
Yeah, well
Keep going,
said. I saw a question regarding soy and tofu. I personally don't eat a ton of soy, and you don't need to eat soy to be on this diet. But from all the research I've done, the estrogenic effects of soy, I mean, Aaron and I have very high testosterone, and the other vegetarians I know who eat soy have extremely high testosterone. And the studies have shown that the phytoestrogens in soy actually don't really impact testosterone levels in men who eat it. With that being said, for whatever reason, I don't respond to soy as well as I do the soy-free tofu or seitan. I digest it way better. So this is a process that each one of us can go through and test these different plant proteins and see what you do well with. There's certain plant protein products I've gotten at the store and I just don't handle it as well. So I stick to the ones that I do handle well. So this will be a process of experimentation for all of us. And just, take notes, even have a journal, be like, hey, like I feel amazing when I have this one. I feel okay when I have this one, and I feel crappy when I have this one. Now you know, and you can proceed and listen to your body.
Yeah. On that note, James, that's a great point, to keep a food journal when you're starting the diet. If you guys really want to nail your diet regimen down, it's a great idea to do a food journal where you log your food one day, and then the next day, maybe you eat the same thing for 2 or 3 days to kind of see if there's a compounding effect. But like when you're going to change or introduce something new, keep everything the same and just introduce one new food. This is what James does a lot. I'm not as diligent about this as James is, but introduce one new food at a time and then write how you felt that day and so on and so forth, right? That's a really good way to get measurable data on how the food's affecting you. Soy for me, for example, is different than it is for James. I digest soy very well. And the whole idea of soy like lowering testosterone or being too estrogenic is absolute fake news. Do the research. You'll find out as well. This is is total propaganda against soy. Soy is actually very much the opposite of that, in that phytoestrogens in soy, they have an effect where if you're actually low in testosterone, they will optimize your testosterone levels more and help you actually build more testosterone. And if you're too high in estrogen, it'll bring the estrogen down. It's kind of like a bioregulator when it's in its organic, natural form. So soy has a ton of health benefits and absolutely does not disrupt hormones, quite the opposite. But the other big thing is, like, you guys saw my bloods, right? Last week or 2 weeks ago. My estradiol was like 15, which is extremely low. Honestly, almost a little bit too low probably, because I was doing a cut. But I'm eating soy probably every day or every other day. And my estrogen is extremely low, testosterone almost 800. So fake news, bottom line.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I don't want to say brainwashing, but when I was animal-based, I believed a lot of things that I never actually looked into the research or experimented. So, it's just, now that I'm immersed in this and I've seen people who are extremely healthy, I've seen their bloods who eat a bunch of soy, it changes your perspective. But anyways, moving on, lentils are one of the best things you could possibly eat. Lentils are a true
Yeah.
protein superfood, very nutrient dense, and have a great nutrient profile.
And
And
very easy to digest.
extremely easy to digest. So I try and include lentils in almost all of my stir fries. I don't need like a huge portion of them, but I'll include some. And then also beans like chickpeas, garbanzo beans, black beans, white beans, kidney beans. Everyone talks about farting with beans, and it is true. If you don't eat beans and you start eating a bunch of beans, you're going to get a bit gassy. But I've noticed after a month, after a few weeks, your digestive system adjusts and it's totally fine. So it's like many things. Your digestive system is adjusting to this new lifestyle. If you haven't eaten these foods before, your your digestive system, your microbiome isn't used to them. So could take a little while, a couple weeks, for you to start feeling amazing. But please stick through with it, because so many people give up because they eat it once and they're like, oh, I didn't feel that great. Well,
Right.
use my language. No shit, you don't feel great. You're not used to it. You're eating something totally new. So stick through. All great things can take a little time to adjust to. This really
That's a
takes a
great
bit
point.
of perseverance. Don't give up. You'll feel
Yeah.
better than you've ever felt in your entire life if you persevere through. It's like going to the gym. If you don't work out and you start going to the gym, you're going to feel like you got hit by a bus for the first
Yeah.
2 weeks. It's going to feel absolutely awful. Does that mean working out is bad? No, your body is not used to it. It needs to adjust. So please keep going. Don't give up.
Yeah. It's funny how simplistic we are in our approach to these things. Like, if it feels bad, it's bad. Like, no, that's provably not true for so many things. Sometimes the best things for you feel bad. So we can't just judge something by, well, it feels uncomfortable. Healing is uncomfortable. Detoxing the body is uncomfortable, but it's absolutely necessary. Because I think, James, also, like, we think about our body as these like kind of static machines that either work or don't work, or, they become broken and they're just unfortunately irreversible. And the body is everything to the opposite of that. It's this highly evolving, adapting mechanism that just takes a little bit of time to adjust to new environments, new intake sources. But if you're eating a specific type of diet, like heavy meat-based diet, and then you switch to a plant-based diet, your microbiome doesn't have enough of the enzymes created to digest lentils and beans and vegetables and starch and stuff. So it might feel weird. You might get gas or whatever. And then people say, oh, it doesn't work for me. Only meat works. It's like, well, no, you primed your gut to digest meat. And if you had done the opposite, as many people do, right, James? People go on the carnivore diet, and it is by far the worst effects of any dietary regimen you can ever conceive of. There is nothing that comes close to the absolute nightmare that going on all meat creates for people in their digestion, especially their bowel movements. Joe Rogan has talked about it a lot. Like, most people quit the carnivore diet because the demand it puts on your body when you just eat heavy, dense, dead carcasses and flesh is really bad for your body. Although it is an elimination diet, so you're getting out all of the toxins in your diet. So there's all these health benefits. But you watch people, like, they're constipated for weeks. They have horrible diarrhea, horrible gas, indigestion. And again, most people can't even stay on the diet because of that. So it's like, okay, I understand if you have a little bit of trouble switching to a more plant-based diet, but it's nothing in comparison to switching to a meat-based diet. So just give it a few weeks, maybe do it gradually or something, but you need to give your body time to create the enzymes to digest these foods. And I promise you, once you have those enzymes in your gut and your gut is primed for these types of foods, you will feel amazing. Your digestion will be so efficient. And that's kind of the whole point of the Jesus diet as well, James. We want to eat the least energy expensive foods possible for digestion, because digestion is the most energy expensive process in the body. And so it's just almost like a direct one-to-one correlation. The more calories you eat, especially flesh, the faster you are aging and the more you are shortening your lifespan. All of us have a limited amount of chi or prana that we came into this incarnation with. And, the Taoists say this and the Hindus say this: we can't add more of this prana to our reservoir. We can only preserve it and use it more wisely, and therefore extend our lifespan. But we all have a limited supply, and we're all on a ticking clock, right? So why would you want to load heavy, dense meat products in your body every day that take 6 hours to digest. I mean, some people, James, a lot of fitness influencers, as we've talked about, they teach you first thing when you wake up, you got to load up on protein, load up on fat and protein, eggs, steak, bacon. I get my protein first thing because, again, they're trying to shoot for these enormously high volumes of protein, 250 grams, 1 gram per pound of body weight and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, you can do that. That's something you can do. Maybe it'll help you build muscle, but it absolutely is going to age you faster, increase the size of the ribosomes in your cells, and you're going to lose all these longevity benefits we're talking about because protein drives up mTOR. As we said, it lowers AMPK. We don't want that. We want to be in a high AMPK state until, again, 2 or 3 o'clock. And then we want to switch to mTOR as the evening approaches so that we can rest and digest while we're sleeping, get all the growth hormone benefits, and then next morning, rinse, repeat, back to the carbs, back to the fructose, spike up AMPK, get all those fasting longevity benefits for 8 to 10 hours, and then drive up mTOR in the evening again. This is really the genius of the Jesus diet, is separating those macros allows us to get really strong signaling for both AMPK and mTOR, which are kind of polarities to each other. And as we said last week, this is a point that I can't stress enough, guys. Almost any other dietary regimen you can think of gives very mixed signalings of mTOR and AMPK because they don't separate fat and carbs the way the Jesus diet does. And so you're not really getting strong signaling on either end of the spectrum, which means you're not getting all of the incredible benefits of both of those hormones.
Yeah, well said. So here we just have a few recipes, and we'll upload this in the description after. But we love our stir fries, lentil and seitan veggie stir fry with honey glaze. See that here? You can make a pasta with white beans, spinach, and tomato. So good. And you could see these have amazing macros. You're getting 50 to 75 grams of protein. Chickpea and potato curry with a light tomato sauce, rice, chickpeas, cauliflower peas, a tomato-based curry, a quinoa bowl with black beans, roasted veggies, and a lime chili dressing.
Yum.
I'm getting hungry now. Red lentil and veggie bowl.
Not till 3, bro.
Not till 3. With a ginger soy sauce, bok choy mushrooms, red lentils, jasmine rice.
Bok choy.
You could, and again, if you're eating eggs, you don't have to eat eggs, but if you want to, you can incorporate eggs in all of these for a little extra choline and protein. Edamame pasta with lentils, roasted veggies, and a garlic sauce. And you can, swap out whatever veggies you would like into these recipes. And that's what we got.
Nice. Thanks for doing that, bro.
No problem.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of the same. I'm one of those people that likes to eat the same stuff every day. So even when James and I eat dinner together, we'll do a couple cups of rice, 1.5 cups per bowl probably. And then we'll do, I don't know the brand, but there's a really good brand at Whole Foods and Sprouts that comes in these packets. And it's like chickpea, tikka masala, or some kind of Indian type of dressing. And so you can just tear open 2 packets, throw it in the saucepan, heat it up, and then drench it over your rice. You can throw an egg or 2 on top of that if you want more protein and fat. But that gives you plenty of protein, and it's a really delicious meal, and it's super easy to make. So that's kind of my lazy way of making dinner. But these meals are a little more, for those of you who like to cook and chef it up in the kitchen, you can be a little more sophisticated with your dinner meals if you want.
Mm-hmm. And, we always try and prioritize, especially for the produce, getting it locally, organic if we can. But look, we totally understand how busy life is. We have limited time. Sometimes there's limited resources. Just do the best you can. If you need to get certain ingredients that are packaged, that are at the grocery store, do what you can. Really, the main concern is moving in the direction of a more wholesome diet, a more compassionate diet. Just move in that direction. You don't have to be perfect. Just do the best you can. And you can make little tweaks as you go. But don't beat yourself up about these little things, and don't not do the diet because you can't find fresh, locally grown produce or whatever. If you can't find that, just go to the best grocery store around and shop that way.
Yeah, that's another good point. We have a question on that somewhere. And not seeing it, but essentially the question is like, oh, what if I can't get locally grown fruit? What if I, have some frozen fruit? What if I cook my food a little bit? There's some of these little nuances to the Jesus diet that are laid out in the Essene Gospel of Peace that I've seen a lot of people take a little too seriously, in the sense of like, well, if I can't get only locally grown fruit, I might as well just go back to my old diet. I can't do the Jesus diet. And it's not like that, my friends. Again, these are just guidelines, and you want to try to aim for the guidelines as much as possible. But let's be honest, we live in a very different world than first century Palestine that Jesus grew up in and the Essenes were living in. So yeah, it might not be totally possible to get only locally grown fruit, depending on where you live, or to never cook food or never have frozen food. So our motto is, we don't want to be religious and dogmatic about anything, right? So definitely don't be so dogmatic about this that you beat yourself up if you're eating non-locally grown fruit or something. We just want to shoot for it as the highest ideal. So I try to have non-frozen blueberries in my protein shake, for example. I could do frozen, and yeah, this shake tastes a little better, but I prefer non-frozen just because I want to get more of those nutrients that sometimes you lose some of the nutrient profiles when you freeze fruit, right? In terms of locally grown stuff, like I'll go to the grocery store like anybody and get fruit that not all of it is locally grown. And okay, it's better to still eat fruit that's not grown locally than to just not eat fruit because I can't get it local. You're you're definitely like shooting yourself in the foot with that kind of mindset. Just do the best you can is the whole idea.
Mhm.
Next question. Okay, I like this question. At Kaimalina 4343 says, do you still take creatine, or are there any supplements that you feel are needed? And then the next question is, can you also have more fruit during the second half of the day with your protein and fat meal? So let's go with the first question. And in terms of supplements, we didn't actually cover this in either of the Jesus Diet podcasts we've done. So in terms of supplements, creatine, number one, and this is for meat eaters or not, everybody in the world, I believe, should be taking creatine. It's one of the greatest health supplements there is. A methylated B vitamin complex, I think, is essential for, again, everybody, not just plant-based eaters. B vitamins have been really stripped from our soil. And so even cows, if you're eating meat, cows are not getting any real B12 or B6 from the grass that they feed on. And so even at factory farms, they have to inject B12 into the cows. And so even meat eaters can't get enough B12 just from eating meat, right? But on top of that, the methylated B complex, when you take something that's methylated, it basically means it's easier for your body to utilize it right away. It doesn't have to break it down and methylate it. It's already methylated. So methylated B vitamin complex is super important for everybody for energy levels and all of that. And then the third supplement I would put in that category is choline. Choline is a very important neurotransmitter. And if you're eating eggs, by the way, I think 4 eggs gives you your entire daily allotment of choline. So if you're not eating eggs, especially, you want to supplement with a choline supplement. I have one that I'll usually take one a day just to get that extra choline, because one important thing that choline does is it helps to transport fat out of the liver. It creates VLDL, very low density lipoproteins, that take the fat out of your liver. So if you're low or deficient in choline, over time for years and years, it will lead to fatty liver disease, which is like the number one cause of all cause mortality. Fatty liver is like really, really bad and something you want to avoid. So choline nips that in the bud. And it also, again, is a neurotransmitter that gets turned into acetylcholine, which really primes the brain, makes you feel alert, and your brain cells are firing faster. So those are my big 3, James: choline, creatine, and a methylated B complex. If you're doing that and eating plenty of fruit and all the other foods, your nutrients are very well covered, in my opinion. But I'm curious if you, James, have any other supplements that you think specifically apply to the Jesus diet.
I think magnesium is always good to supplement with, glycinate. And, that's the ones you mentioned are what I take and a few others, but also organic muscle. If you need some extra kick for your workouts, we have an amazing organic pre-workout. We actually came out with the first ever organic pre-workout in history 10 years ago. So it's made with organic beetroot. Beetroot in general is a great supplement to take for blood and heart health. So yeah, check out organicmuscle.com. We have a host of USDA organic vegan supplements that can help you on your fitness journey. I'm trying to think of any others. I take a zinc, and then for the guys, Tonkat Ali is just incredibly effective at optimizing hormone levels. So check out Tonkat Ali. We sell it also. We have the only organic Tonkat on the market. And yeah, like you honestly don't really need supplements at all, but they can be beneficial when you have the other pieces of the puzzle together. For vegetarians and vegans, though, definitely recommend the B complex. That was probably one of the most critical ones. And the creatine, as Aaron said.
I see somebody asking about iron. Actually, most of the highest sources of iron I found are plant-based sources. Blanking on what I think want to say lentils might be one of them. Chickpeas, pumpkin seeds are extremely high in iron. So the idea that like you can't get iron if you don't eat meat is just laughable, because all the highest sources are basically from plants. But in terms of supplements too, James, like I love supplements. I take quite a bit of them. I've taken a lot of supplements my entire adult life. So I've actually taken less supplements being on the Jesus diet. But like for sleep, for example, I'm going to take glycine, taurine, magnesium at minimum every night to help prime my body for sleep. I just think those nutrients are so important for bodily health and functioning, especially brain health, gut health. So I think everybody should be taking the basics like taurine or magnesium, just because you'll notice the difference when you're on these supplements that it really does improve your quality of life. But it especially helps with things like sleep. And then you can take, there's another really great sleep supplement called Epigenin, which you may have heard of, that works really synergistically with magnesium and the others as well to give you really good sleep. So I'll take that, and then glutathione as well, which is kind of the like master antioxidant of the body. So I take those 4 or 5 supplements around like 8 or 9 o'clock when I'm about an hour before bed. So it's not like I'm just taking those big 3. I just mentioned those because if you're switching to this diet and you want to know like what are the most important supplements to compensate for lack of nutrients in my diet, I would say choline, creatine, and B-methyl complex. But yeah, like take magnesium, take some of the basic stuff that, we have countless studies showing the health improvements that these basic supplements can provide. Okay, the next question she asked was, can you also have more fruit during the second half of the day with protein and fat? So the answer to this, I would say, is no. I wouldn't personally have a bunch of fruit with my protein and fat meal, especially because if you've already loaded up on fruit, and the whole point is you're giving yourself like 8 to 10 hours to do nothing but have fruit juice and fruit and honey. So you shouldn't need any further fruit after that. But also we want to separate, again, the AMPK signaling from the mTOR signaling, and we don't want to mix those signals too much. So the reason that starches are good for dinner meals rather than fruit and like rapidly digesting glucose glycogen sources, honey, maple syrup, and all that, is because those sugar sources get dumped into your bloodstream like right away, and they put an immediate demand on your bloodstream and insulin levels, right? Whereas rice or potato, sweet potato, these are starches, right? And so they have a way lower impact on your blood sugar, and they don't put a demand on your blood to get the sugar out of the blood so fast. So you can have carbs with fat and protein if it's a lower glycemic index source like starches, like rice, like potatoes. So it's not like you like never ever eat carbs with fat. It's not quite like that. It's just that we want to minimize fat as much as possible for the first 2/3 of the day. And you're going to get trace fats, right, in certain foods. Even fruit has some trace fats in it. So that's okay. But we definitely want to stay below like 10 to 15 grams of fat until dinner. If you're getting more than 10 to 15 grams of fat, more than 20 grams of protein, then you're going to start really blunting, studies show. You're going to start blunting those hormones, AMPK, FGF21, GDP15, which create youthfulness, vitality, cellular turnover, reducing oxidative stress. We want those benefits. And so to get those benefits, you need to really err on the side of like just fruit juice. I keep it isolated until later half of the day, and then have some starch with your protein and fat. Everybody loves to have rice, with protein and fat sources. So you can absolutely do that, but you don't want any fast digesting sugars with your dinner meal is the idea.
Aaron, people are asking about coffee and tea. And this is an interesting question. You know, Aaron and I both drink coffee and tea, but there is a caveat. I've noticed that a lot of people do respond negatively to coffee. So it's kind of on a case by case basis. I try and do no more than 1 cup of coffee per day, or I start going insane. um, and I've also noticed that having like bananas or some food in my stomach before I drink coffee really helps with the jitters or anxiety I would get otherwise. But if I do more than 1 cup, and also the quality of the coffee, like low quality coffee can be really toxic. So only source the highest quality organic coffee and teas that you can, and try not to drink caffeine too late in the day because it will negatively impact your sleep. But yeah, you know, we all know our bodies individually. If you drink coffee and you get diarrhea and then you feel like you're going to have an anxiety attack, maybe it's not for you. Maybe switch to a decaf or something. Or there's all these alternative coffees like made from mushrooms. So some of these things we can't give an exclusive answer that a one size fits all. Just like I said, a food journal is really helpful. Because they're like, I felt like I was an insane person yesterday, but I don't know why. Oh, let me see what I ate and drank. And then you'll get some answers.
Yeah. So many people love coffee and it's like, no, don't take away my coffee. And I get it. I love coffee. There's nothing quite like coffee. But you definitely want to keep your caffeine intake a little bit lower. I don't think that having more than like 50 milligrams of caffeine is going to be, you're not going to get any further really health benefits after that loading. It's just going to kind of be too much for the system. At least for me, I keep it to like 30 milligrams of caffeine in my coffee and I feel great. Oh, did we lose James? Darn it. Come back, James. Let's all pray. Moment of silence for James. Maybe he'll return. We'll keep rocking until James comes back. So I do like 30 milligrams of coffee, and that way you can still get the coffee taste. You can mix half decaf, half regular. But the thing is, if you're eating a lot of fruit and fruit sugar, you're not going to need coffee for energy. And I'm going to actually get super controversial with y'all now. If you guys are ready to take another sugar pill and be a little bit red pilled on this, there's James, at least I think, then get ready for a red pill here, because this is going to be a controversial take. Over the counter, like table sugar or processed sugar, even like raw organic cane sugar, has been super demonized, right? Oh, everybody knows sugar is bad. But we've debunked that myth and shown no, sugar is the most natural fuel source for the body. Nature makes sugar in plants. There we go. Welcome back, sir. You had to go take your coffee break, huh?
I don't know what happened. Some coffee demon came in and booted me from this.
They don't want this information to get out, bro. It's the negative polarity. So I'm trying to sugar pill them, James, on having a light lemon sugar water drink in the morning. So this is what I do, guys. This is going to sound crazy to a lot of you, and I'm fully aware of that, but just hear me out. First thing when I wake up, I go have a glass of warm lemon water. So I cut open a lemon, squeeze half the lemon in the water, heat up my water and pour it in. And then I have a tablespoon of raw organic cane sugar in there. And then I'll sprinkle some salt as well. Because when you sleep at night, your brain uses 60 to 80% of your glycogen in your brain. So this is why we wake up with brain fog. And this is one of the interesting sort of symptoms of being on the Jesus diet, is that a lot of people, myself included, will report when you start having a lot more fruit in your diet, your sleep improves tremendously, but then you wake up feeling a little more brain fog, a little more tired when you wake up. And that's because your body is getting better at using glucose. And so your brain actually needs a lot of energy, a lot of glucose to give you deep REM sleep and delta sleep. So if you're low on sugar before you go to bed in your body, if your body's glycogen depleted, then your cortisol is going to be high and your dopamine is going to be low, which means you're going to wake up more in the night. You're going to probably have insomnia and so forth. So we like having sugar during the day because we load the body up with glycogen, and then we have high dopamine, low cortisol, low inflammation, which produces good sleep. But because your body's so good at using the sugar now, it gives you really good sleep because it's using up all that sugar to drive you deep into REM sleep, right? So you wake up feeling a little tired. And so I started learning that if you just put a tablespoon of like organic cane sugar with some lemon water and some salt, and I drink that, oh my gosh, it's only 12 grams of sugar, but immediately brain fog gone, energy lifted, mood lifted. It's like everything that I've always wished coffee was, James. Like when we drink coffee, we kind of imagine it is like, oh, this is going to give me energy and make me feel less brain fog and feel good. And at least for me, coffee doesn't actually do that. Coffee just gives me the jitters if I have too much of it, but it doesn't make me necessarily feel more energetic. But a little bit of sugar lemon water in the morning replenishes those glycogen stores and lets your body start firing on all cylinders much more quickly. Now, if that's weird for you, you can just have orange juice or whatever. But again, sugar has been so demonized because it gets blamed for fats problems. And studies show this, like you literally cannot eat. You could not kill yourself eating sugar because it would be so satiating and you would feel so much energy that you would not want to eat sugar anymore after a certain point, and you'd want to go for a run or something. Whereas like salt, you can absolutely kill yourself eating too much salt. If you swallowed a bunch of salt water, you would definitely die, right? So like sugar is actually extremely safe. And then there's the whole thing about blood sugar spikes, James. I saw somebody comment, but sugar spikes your blood sugar. It's like, okay, we need to understand how blood sugar works, guys. Spiking your blood sugar is not bad. Let me repeat. Spiking your blood sugar is not bad. There's a phrase that says, it's not about how high you fly, it's about how fast you fall. So you can absolutely have a huge blood sugar spike, and that's what creates insulin sensitivity in the body. Body releases, pancreas releases insulin, and the spike comes way back down. So what you want to see with a blood sugar spike is a quick descent, right? What happens when you eat fat with rapidly digesting sugar and glucose? Your body can't diminish the sugar with insulin because you got all this fat loading up your bloodstream. So it goes like this, and then it takes a long time to come down. That's what's bad about a blood sugar spike, is how long your blood sugar stays elevated. Remember, we said this, guys, in the second episode. Type 2 diabetes is majoritively caused by having fatty acids hanging out in your bloodstream too long. That's what leads to insulin resistance. So when we just have sugar by itself, we're allowing the body to do what it does best, which is to use glucose to shuttle it to our liver, our brain, our muscles. And insulin is very good when it's used properly. Insulin is how you get nutrients into your cell. So this whole idea, James, of demonizing blood sugar spikes, demonizing insulin spikes as if they're inherently bad is yet another kind of dualistic framework we have about the body, that like God created the body with some kind of weird mechanical deficit. Oh no, every time I eat sugar, my blood sugar spikes, and I know that's bad, so fruit is bad. This is the way that the average person in America today thinks about fruit, and nothing could be further from the truth. Your body becomes more insulin sensitive and less diabetic the more you just have sugar by itself and allow your insulin to do what it does, which is to kick that glucose out of your bloodstream. You guys saw my bloods. I have like a 3.14 insulin level, which is extremely low, like very, very, very insulin sensitive. And I'm eating 400 to 500 grams of sugar a day. So let's just dispel that myth forever that blood sugar spikes are bad. It's not about how high your blood sugar spikes. It's about how fast it falls. And if you're loading up protein and fat with the sugar, then yes, that spike would be bad because your blood sugar takes 30 minutes, 60 minutes to finally get the sugar out. And the sugar has glycated in the bloodstream. Like sugar and fat hanging out in your bloodstream too long produces a lot of problems. Fat is much worse, but sugar is also not great to just have sugar hanging out in your bloodstream. So we want fast working insulin, which is what fruit and fruit juice and sugar teaches our body how to do. Did I do that one justice, James?
Sure did.
Anything you want to add to that one before we go to the next question?
Well, I was just thinking back to the caffeine question, that you really don't need as much caffeine, way less, because your energy will naturally be so much higher with this lifestyle. And, you know, I've Snake Diet, Cole Robinson has talked about how many of his clients have given up caffeine and other addictions while doing the sugar fasting, because a lot of addictions come from a need for or desire for energy. And once you solve that issue and you have energy, you don't need the Adderall or you don't need the caffeine as much.
Yeah.
So
You really
there's a
don't.
lot of good fruit. No pun intended.
I want to answer this one really quick. Is oatmeal okay? I'm guessing you're asking in the morning. And we would say preferably no. We don't want to have starches in the morning because starches are not fast digesting sugar sources, and they don't release any fructose, right? They have no fructose in them. And it's specifically the fructose that we're looking to get. Fruit is the fountain of youth, y'all. Fruit has all the longevity benefits, and it's better and better for you the more you eat it in isolation. I know I'm repeating myself, guys, but I'm doing this on purpose so you can get this into your head. This is the philosophy behind the diet. We want to eat fruit in heavy isolation so we get all the longevity benefits that fructose uniquely brings. So you can eat starches, and you could have like good energy and all that. But if you want the longevity benefits, which is kind of the whole point, we're trying to live that Essene lifestyle, right? Live to 120 or more. Then you don't want to have starches until the evening because you're not going to get the fructose from them. So hopefully that helps, Devlin. One other thing. Go ahead.
Someone asked about sensitive teeth from fruit. And then James Precor said rinsing in baking soda and swishing is, that's great to rinse your fruit in baking soda. It really makes them last longer too. But I've noticed if you have sensitive teeth, avoid pineapple. Pineapple for me does make my teeth very sensitive, but a lot of the other fruits, you should be totally good. Berries, maybe we could get into our favorite fruits, Aaron. But for me personally, the fruits I enjoy the most and have the best experience, the best energy, and no tooth sensitivity. I eat a ton of blackberries, ton of blueberries, ton of bananas, a ton of golden kiwis, and what else? What are your favorites, Aaron?
Again, I'm a simple guy when it comes to food. I eat kind of the same stuff every day. For me, I just crush bananas and orange juice. I just love it. I love both of those fruits. They taste amazing together, and they just give you everything you're looking for in terms of these longevity benefits. But yeah, like the tooth sensitivity problem can only happen when you're eating, first of all, number one, like just snacking all throughout the day and not giving your body breaks. You want to give your body at least like an hour break between when you're taking in fruit. Like if you do a bowl of fruit, James, you slice up some strawberries, bananas, kiwi, whatever, and you crush the bowl of fruit, then give your body a couple hours because your saliva will naturally get rid of the acidity in your mouth and your teeth are going to be great. But if you're snacking all day long, what happens is when we eat, and this is more so true, not so much of fruit itself, but like fruit juice or honey or raw cane sugar, the bacteria in your mouth produces some kind of acidic molecular substance as a byproduct of digesting the sugars, which can lead to tooth sensitivity. So a really easy way to mitigate that is just to swish your mouth with water after you eat fruit. You can just spit it out. Even better than that, which this is just really good for teeth health anyways, and anyone should do this regardless, is the baking soda swishing in your mouth. Pulls out toxins, great for gum health. Like you can just do that once a day. Swish some baking soda water, spit it out. I like to do oil pulling as well, James. Some people might be familiar with what oil pulling is, but similar effect. You swish oil around in your mouth, like coconut oil. You can do it with pretty much any oil you want. And it pulls out toxins. It creates really, really healthy teeth. So those are some things I do anyways, just for normal oral hygiene. But if you run into tooth sensitivity, it probably just means you're not brushing your teeth enough. Maybe you do morning and evening. You're letting the sugar hang out too long in your mouth and you're eating it too often. So just giving your body those longer breaks, hour to 2 hours between eating fruit would help with that. But with that being said, James, I haven't had any real issues with this since I've been doing this diet. For a little while when I first started and I was really loading up on fruit, I had a little bit of teeth sensitivity that I noticed. And that's when I did the research on, why is this happening? And I found the answers I just gave to you. And then since then, it's been a non-issue whatsoever. So yeah, I'm glad that this person brought up this question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And also avoiding dried fruit, that can help as well, because
Yes.
it's very like sticky and it could get stuck in between your teeth. And then if it's just there for many hours, it can cause issues. But like Aaron said, like I've had little glimmers of this problem, but once you enact these solutions and find the potentially problem fruits and avoid those, you're going to be in great shape. And our teeth are amazingly healthy. I just went to the dentist and they were very, very thrilled with what they saw.
Nice. Yeah, I forgot to mention I was eating a ton of dried mangoes when I started the Jesus diet, and started to have some of the tooth sensitivity. And I did some research, and it was like, oh yeah, dried fruit is like the worst source of fruit sugar you can get, between like raw fruit, fruit juice, or whatever. Dried fruit is not the best source because of all the things James just said. And yeah, it's going to stick to your teeth more. So I think if you're just eating fruit, you're not going to have an issue with it at all, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to answer this question too. What is your goal protein intake per day? We also didn't talk about this on the last 2 episodes, but in our Jesus 40-day challenge we're putting together, we're going to give you this macro split, the food pyramid. It's going to have all the guidelines on it for you. But in terms of a macro split to shoot for, we're going to be recommending a 60-20-20 macro split. So that's 60% of your calories come from carbs, carbohydrates, mostly fruit, right? 20% from fat and 20% from protein. And because fat is, more than twice as calorie dense as protein and carbs, if you're eating, let's see, I'm just going to do some quick math in my head. Normally my maintenance will be around 2750 calories per day. So for me, 6'2", 190-ish pound man eating 2750 calories a day, that macro split calculates out to about 400 grams of carbs, 130 grams of protein, and about 60 grams of fat. So if I want to lose body fat or get a little more lean, I'll drop the fat from 60 down to 30. And I did that for 8 weeks leading up to the bloods that I showed on the podcast. And so even at 30, you can see from my bloods, my hormone profiles were still really, really good. Do I think they could have been better eating 60 grams of fat for those 8 weeks? Probably. But how much better? I don't think that much better. I think my body did great with 30 grams of protein and high carbohydrates. So you can mix it around based on your goals, right? If you're trying to lose fat, you want to bring fat or drop fat as low as you can, around 30 grams. But 60-20-20 is a really good split for anybody to start with. And then you can experiment from there. Maybe you actually want to drop the fat a little bit lower, raise up the protein a little bit. You can totally do that. As long as you're, again, following the saving carbohydrates and fruit for the first 2/3 of the day, fat and protein for the end of the day, then there's a lot of wiggle room in how you can manage your macros.
Yeah, and really measure your fat, because Aaron's going to laugh at
Yes.
this. I'm notorious for over consuming certain things just out of absent-mindedness. There was a period where I kept gaining weight and I didn't understand why. I don't know. This was like a year ago. And I was like, man, everything is so dialed in. I just don't get it. And I finally realized I wasn't measuring my olive oil intake, and, Italian, American, I love olive oil. And I was eating like 10x the amount of olive oil I should have been eating when I was cooking, because I wasn't measuring it. So I would just pour it in. I'd be like, oh, that's like a tablespoon, right? And then I actually measured it, and I was having like 10 tablespoons of olive oil. So really measure your oil.
Gavone.
Classic Gavone move. Lesson learned.
Yeah. If you're not really measuring your fat, it is so easy to get way more fat than you think you're getting, even if you're cooking in oils and stuff. So really try to, you can just do it for a week, guys. Just measure at least your fat. If you're not going to do all your macros, calculate how much fat you're getting so that you really get a better idea of oh, this is what 30 grams or 50 grams of fat actually looks like in my diet. Because there are trace fats in most foods. And again, fat is more than twice as calorie dense, 9 calories per gram versus 4 for carbs and protein. So it's easy to get too much fat in your diet, and then you're going to probably be holding on to more body fat when you're intaking more fat. So if you want to be lean, healthy, feel young, feel youthful, we keep the fat as low as we relatively can, 30 to 60 grams. The next question I want to get to, James, that was asked a lot. Where did it go? Okay, this one from Brandon Lawrence. People have said that they had to go back on meat after years of vegan vegetarianism. Any concern for you? And then there's a question in the chat I keep seeing. What about plant defense chemicals? So those questions kind of go hand in hand a little bit. So this is one of the common arguments, right, you hear against. In fact, James, this is the argument we hear almost exclusively from meat eaters on Instagram and stuff when we're talking to people, is they say, well, my third cousin was a vegan and didn't work and her health crashed, so she had to go back on meat. So I know meat's good for you and plants are bad for you. And using this kind of like very tertiary evidence of other people's experience with it, or even their own, right? I tried veganism for X years and didn't work. So I talked about this in the first episode, that I did a strict vegetarian diet, really mostly vegan, for a year, and my hormones also got wrecked, and I had to go back on meat because I didn't know what I was doing. Diet guidelines and nutritional science is not simple, guys. Like, if you're not really doing research on how the human body works, how nutrition works in the human body, and really unlearning so many of the stereotypes we've heard about nutrition, then you're probably going to be eating wrong, right? How many of you guys have heard before this that mixing fat and carbs together is really bad for your health and destroys your longevity pathways and all these things? I didn't know this until 2 years ago when I started the Jesus diet. I was having fat and protein first thing in the morning like everybody. There's so many ways you can get your diet wrong, because really God created our bodies to eat a very simple diet, mostly fruit, and then in the evening, some fat and protein. Like, that's kind of the gist of the Jesus diet. We eat a very simple and harm-free diet. And so most people's diets are very, very complex and complicated because we have so many cravings. We want to have all these different foods. And even in Ayurveda, right, mixing foods is like a no-no. And there's a whole science about mixing foods. So just because somebody doesn't know how to eat vegan or vegetarian diet properly doesn't mean the diet can't be eaten properly. I know lots of carnivores that are extremely obese, unhealthy, tons of inflammation, and they're eating wrong. Is meat bad for you, carnivores, because people eat meat wrong? Like, this, it's not a good philosophical argument against a plant-based diet. You need to learn how the body is supposed to run and operate with nutrition, and then do your best to follow those guidelines. And so what we think the Jesus diet is the simplest approach we can sort of hand to you to say, look, we believe that these guidelines is the best, most optimal way to eat. So follow these guidelines, and you can customize it within those guidelines to fit your life and all that. But if you're following the guidelines, you're going to get these results we're describing: more energy, more youthfulness, more vitality, longer lifespan, even in terms of like mental and spiritual health. You guys are going to be amazed. And some of you have even commented this in the chat today. Like, when you eat a lot of fruit and you're getting all those light codes from the fruit that fruit uniquely contains, you feel your consciousness expand. James and I would literally be texting each other during the day. The first few weeks we were on the Jesus diet, being like, dude, are you like as blissed out as I am? Like, I feel so much closer to God. I feel so much more connected to people, because your dopamine's high, your cortisol's low. So you're creating an environment in your body and in your brain chemistry to feel amazing. And when you feel amazing, James, you tend to be more loving, more patient, and more kind towards people. And when you feel shittier because you're digesting a ton of meat, you're digesting a ton of calories, cortisol's high, inflammation's high, dopamine's low, yeah, good luck being of service to others. It's really hard to press through a sick, unoptimized body and health condition to be spiritually virtuous, right? They really go hand in hand. And the thing is, James, God designed us to be healthy, to be optimally healthy, and to thrive in our human bodies.
Yeah, well said. And Aaron, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, but I've seen some people since transitioning to this diet that I hadn't seen in a while. And they've commented about how much my vibe has changed and how how much healthier I look and all these things. And I feel it, I feel like a new person with this lifestyle. The way I think is
Yeah.
different, the optimism, the compassion, everything. I'm so grateful for this lifestyle. And also, Aaron, I know this is true for you. The downloads, the connections you can make when you're not heavy, the research we do. I mean, we spend
Yeah.
hundreds of hours researching for this podcast and looking for clues and drawing various conclusions. And I don't think we could do it. I don't think we could see the things we see without the clear vessel, without the clear channel.
Agreed, man. This is why I'll fast when I'm going to speak at an event or speak on stage or do a live call. I like to be more fasted or just be on some fruit or fruit juice, because when I have a meal before, trying to speak or something, you can feel a palpable difference in your brain chemistry and your ability to like have memory recall and word recall really significantly goes down if you're digesting a lot, because all the blood has to go to your gut to digest the food, right? If you wake up in the morning, James, and like most, health influencers, get all that protein first thing. A lot of people have a protein shake when they wake up or something. It's like, why would you want to dump a bunch of red meat or protein and fat into your stomach? You're just guaranteeing you're going to be not in a high energy state for the rest of the day, because now your body has to dump all the, energy into your gut to digest and break down these fats and proteins for the next 5-6 hours. And so you can't be in this optimal state. Now, if you're a carnivore or doing keto, people will say, oh, I have good energy when I'm on carnivore and keto. And you can if you're in ketosis. That's the whole point, is that your body's running on fat now, ketones, for energy rather than glucose. So yes, you can eat meat in the morning and feel good and have good energy if you're a carnivore or on keto. But my friends, you will not thrive and be euphorically blissed out the way you will eating fruit. When you have fruit without protein and fat, you feel 10 times better, I promise you, because I did the ketogenic diet for almost a year and a half, and I didn't even feel that good most of the time. I just felt okay. And I thought that was optimal, is the most I was ever used to at that point. And it wasn't until doing this, James, that I realized, oh my gosh, I had no idea how good I could feel. I had no idea how good my body could actually feel, my brain, chemistry and all that could feel. Eating fruit like this, I would have done this 10 years ago if I had known. So that's really important. The other thing I wanted to say is the other question on plant defense chemicals. Now, because the Jesus diet stresses fruit and fruit juice and honey, we actually don't eat a whole lot of vegetables, James. I do like to have zucchini or broccoli, like steamed vegetables, bell peppers, onions in my dinner meals, but that's about it. Bok choy, like I'll have some of that stuff. But the defense chemicals you hear about are usually from like kale and leafy greens and plants like that. And we don't personally eat any of that stuff. You absolutely can. And I don't think defense chemicals are as big of a deal as the carnivores make them out to be. But the whole premise of the Jesus diet is we actually don't eat plants. We eat what plants produce. We pick the tomato off of the vine, and the vine keeps growing more tomatoes, or the bell pepper, or whatever. We don't eat trees. We eat what trees produce. We don't eat animals. We eat what animals produce. So that's why it's a harm-free diet. If you're getting eggs and milk, as we've said, you need to be getting them only from local farmers that you can verify treat their animals with kindness and love. Absolutely no factory farms whatsoever. That's a total violation of the Jesus way philosophy. The golden rule axiom is number one. This is what we orient our entire lives around, guys. Do unto others as you would wish others to do unto you. James and I were in Miami this weekend, as we said, and we were going through the airports, and I made a comment to James saying, one of the reasons I just don't like commercial airline travel is because you just feel like a herded cattle when you're in an airport. Just stand in this long line, wait in this line, sit in this seat crowded by other people, and it gives you a little taste of how cows must feel, right? So if I wouldn't want to be stuffed into a factory farm, I'm not going to contribute to animals being stuffed in factory farms. We talked about this in the first Jesus Diet episode, James, but we had 2 or 3 questions come in of people saying, like, how do you justify eating eggs and milk with all the harm that is done to animals at factory farms? And so the answer is, we don't eat milk and eggs from factory farms. That's an absolute no-no. So most of us, maybe not most of us, but a lot of us might have trouble finding local organic farms. So I would say definitely don't have milk. You do not need raw milk in your diet to thrive. And you don't need eggs to thrive either. But eggs are just a convenient fuel source, in my opinion, to get some of the saturated fats, the choline, some of the really essential nutrients. And eggs just have an incredible amount of health benefits. They're one of the healthiest foods that biologists have ever studied. We saw a link, a video the other day, James, that our friend sent us, where a guy ate 800 eggs over the course of like a week or something. I don't know how long it was. Ate a crap load of eggs, and his LDL went down, HDL went up. His blood profiles improved from eating that many eggs in a week. So that's a lot of, dietary fat and so forth, and yet it still improved his blood markers. So eggs are a really, really good food source, and chickens produce a huge amount, like thousands of eggs in their lifetime, and very, very few of them are going to ever be inseminated by a rooster, right? So the rest of them are going to go to waste anyway. So it's my personal belief, and you guys are welcome to disagree, that if you can find people that have chickens that are kind and loving to them, and they have all these leftover eggs, then it's totally in alignment with natural law and the no harm principle to eat those eggs. I also talked about the issue with the densities and helping animals evolve towards third density. I think based on what the law of one says and teaches, that every density level helps the previous density to evolve towards the next density. So for example, humans help their animal pets, second density pets, evolve towards third density. How? Because we give them names, identities, rules, boundaries, and limitations. We interact with them lovingly like humans, so they learn what intimacy and relationship is like. And so Ra says pets are the latest stage example of a second density being. And most likely that soul is now primed and ready for their first third density lifetime as a human, which is pretty cool, right? It's a pretty cool, like, relational dynamic the universe created. So if you're taking care of animals like cows or chickens, providing them with all their basic needs, food, shelter, protection, safety, love, care, then it's not too much to ask that the animals give some value back to the humans, because that's what third density does, right? Everything has to be an equal value exchange of some sort in the third density. Humans don't like when other humans mooch off of them and take advantage of them. Now, animals don't have that awareness to know that they're taking advantage of someone's generosity. But nonetheless, when you have an equal value exchange with an animal in a loving way that abides by natural law, you're not harming the animal, right? Then you're actually helping that animal evolve towards third density. So there's a lot of benefit for the animal as well, if it's done according to natural law. So I know I talked about that on the first podcast, but I wanted to stress it again because I don't think a lot of people watched the first episode and heard that explanation. So it always is good to stress some of the finer points a few times, I think.
Yes. Yeah, this is a complex topic. Part of the reason we promote eggs is really a strategic, pragmatic viewpoint, and that our main goal is to get people open to this idea that you do not need meat to thrive and be healthy. And we have found that allowing an animal-based person to give them the option to eat raw milk and eggs makes it 1,000 times easier and more likely that they'll actually even give this a try. So in our minds, if we could get someone to make that transition to a lacto-ovo vegetarian, then we know that they're going to feel great after a few weeks or a month or two, then that person might be open to veganism eventually. So, it's a strategic move. And from our experience, eggs are very healthy and beneficial. But I totally 1,000% understand the vegan arguments about the absolute horror and terror of the dairy and egg industries. The mainline industries are demonic. The way they treat the cows, the cattle, and the chickens is horrific. They, basically the R word, they artificially inseminate the cows, treat them it's just heartbreaking. So
yeah, it is.
We even have to be mindful for some of the smaller farms and even farms at the farmers market. They still do some of these practices with the eggs. They can still kill the chickens after they're done laying. So I would highly recommend resources for eggs. There's like local hens, buymyeggs.com. if you just research your area, you could find people who have backyard chickens where it's really just like pets that they have and they lay eggs. That would be your best bet. Honestly, best of all would be getting some chickens yourself and treating them with love and compassion and
Goals.
taking them into your family. That is the ultimate goal. And that's the future we see, because this structure of society, I don't think is going to last too long. And eventually the goal is to have small symbiotic communities with friends, and, you know, each house contributes something. One person will grow vegetables, one person will have chickens, one person will have cows for dairy, and it will be like one loving community. I think that's what the future is. And yeah.
I agree, man. And to all of our, zealous vegan followers watching this, hear me out on this argument. I know a lot of vegans still say, even if it's from local farmers who love their animals and treat them kindly, it's still abuse. And I disagree with you, but I respect your opinion. But just so you understand my way of thinking in this side of the argument, if all of us, because James makes a good point, right? This is a reason why we do allow for eggs and milk in the Jesus diet if it's from a non-harm source, because the number one culprit on earth in terms of lowering our collective consciousness and frequency is the mass genocide of 90 billion animals a year that get slaughtered against their will. Imagine how much that drops the frequency of our planet with all that animal suffering. So we want, it's like red alert, red alert. This is the biggest problem on our planet. We got to solve this as fast as possible. So that means we got to get people off of meat as fast as possible. Now, sometimes in reality, you have to make some compromises, right? And give people a middle ground to extend an olive branch and say, look, I know you're afraid to stop eating meat because you've been propagandized to believe that you can't be healthy and strong without meat. So cool, no problem. Eat these eggs instead. You're getting all the same nutrients that meat provides you with way lower digestion time, right? And make that an intermediary step. And a lot of people will say, pretty much everyone we've talked to, James, that is a meat eater that wants to get off of meat but is afraid to, they say, oh, that's a great, I never even thought of that. I could just eat eggs. I don't have to have milk. And they jump on to the Jesus diet. They stop eating flesh. We see that as a huge win. Even if they're getting some eggs from a local farm where you think there's a little bit of harm involved in taking those eggs from those chickens, I get it. But what's the alternative? You're going to say, sorry, man, you got to go full plant-based or you're evil and you're contributing to the problem. You're going to say, okay, bye. Like, I'm not interested. I can't make that leap. It's too scary for me. Everyone says when you go plant-based, you lose all your muscle and all this stuff. You got to give a concession to people sometimes and say, I understand you're afraid that you think you can't thrive without meat. So try this. Eat 4 to 6 eggs a day. Make up your protein and saturated fat, get all the same nutrients from meat and see how you feel. And people say, oh, that's a great idea. And a lot of times, James, they end up being, vegetarian, plant-based anyways, and taking the eggs out of their diet. So we think that's a much huger win than just saying, you got to go all the way or you're a bad person. That's how you scare people away from your cause, and you're doing more harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the argument. If all of us, let's say James, said we're only going to eat eggs from small, local farms that treat their hens with love and kindness, and we started doing that, and none of us ate meat at all. Well, first of all, the farms that I get my eggs from don't kill their chickens or sell chicken meat. But even if they did, now we have all taken away any reason for them to kill those chickens, because now they actually want more eggs because nobody wants chicken meat. And we all want them to come from a good, farm that treats animals well. And so now we're putting pressure on these farms to not do factory farming type of methodologies, right? And then what about the cows? If we all just said, we just want to have milk, but we don't want to have cow flesh and we don't want to see cows slaughtered, then now, again, we're removing any reason from that farm to slaughter the cow. It's just available for milk now. And so the cows can live long, healthy lives. They can bring in tons and tons of heifers. And at the farm I get milk from here, James, when I went to the farm, first of all, these farmers love their cows. They're like pets. They're like loving and kind to them, kissing them and stuff. And when they ring the milk bell, these heifers, it was amazing to watch, man. They literally ran towards the barn and were like competing for who could get milked fastest. They love getting milked, and they don't use any artificial insemination. They just bring a bull in, once a season or whatever it is. and they have natural reproduction, and they let the cows feed their calves before they milk them. They do everything, as far as I could tell, according to natural law and no harm. So it's like if we all wanted that, we would remove any reason for small farms to slaughter their cows, and factory farms would definitely shut down overnight. So that's how you know it's a step closer to what's right and what's good. You know what I mean? Like, we're actually taking away reasons to kill these animals if we only want them for eggs and milk in a healthy, beneficial way. So that's why I think it is in full alignment with the Jesus Way philosophy to allow these foods in our diets under these rule sets. But if you're a vegan and you totally disagree, we respect your opinion completely. We just ask that you respect our opinions as well, and don't come onto our page calling us evil animal abusers and stuff like that. Mutual respect is really important in these matters, I think.
Indeed.
Okay, a couple more questions here. Are you seeing anything good in the chat you want to answer, James?
Let's see.
Cheat meals. I saw Nick Olas asked this question, and at Unorthodox Lifestyle also asked this question. Do you guys do cheat meals or indulgence days? So I don't like program in cheat meals, but cheat meals happen, right? When you travel, when you have birthday dinners, have friends over for dinner, whatever. So here's the guidelines for cheat meals. If you're really crushing the Jesus diet and following the guidelines well, your metabolism is absolutely cranked through the roof, optimized and primed, so you can really afford some cheat meals. And what's interesting, James, is that I actually noticed this effect when I went on vacation to Mexico the last couple of years. I would go on a full week vacation and honestly pig out. Like, I'm eating 3 big meals a day, just enjoying myself and walking a lot. And I would come home, and to my shock, James, I would always lose between 5 to 7 pounds. Eating way higher calories and walking a lot more actually made me burn body fat. And that's why we stress walking as a part of the Jesus diet. Get your 10,000 steps a day, because it's really good for your metabolism and digestion to walk. And when your metabolism is primed, a cheat meal can actually, believe it or not, guys, can actually boost your metabolism temporarily. Let me know in the chat, how many of you guys have had this experience where, normally you're pretty strict with your diet, you eat really well, but then you have a big cheat meal one night, and you wake up the next day thinking oh man, I really let myself go last night, had a big meal. I bet I'm going to look a little more, inflamed today or something. And you look in the mirror when you get into the bathroom and you're like, I look leaner. It's the weirdest thing, but it's happened to me dozens of times in my life, where I have a big, huge cheat meal, brownies, ice cream, whatever. And then I actually look leaner the next day. Well, that's because of the mTOR signaling you're getting. This is why we stress the signaling pathways. mTOR can crank up IGF-1 when you signal it in the right way. And so when you crank up IGF-1 burns body fat. And so you can actually burn body fat if you have a really strict diet and every once in a while have a cheat meal. Because what does eating a lot of calories do, James? It requires your metabolism to increase to burn all that extra fuel off or store it or whatever. So when your metabolism is already primed, you can have a cheat meal, once a week, and it actually has some pretty interesting benefits to your metabolic health. But the problem is when you do it a lot, right? The problem is when you don't have a strict dietary regimen, you eat like crap most of the time and you're having 1 or 2 cheat meals a week, going out to dinner. Yeah, you're going to get fat and be unhealthy. We want to be very strict in our Jesus diet regimen. And then once a week or 2 weeks, once a month, whatever you want, let yourself go, have a cheat meal. And here's the other part, guys, that you're going to really enjoy about the Jesus diet. We didn't talk about this, James, very much on either 2 episodes, but fruit fasting is the most incredible weight loss, fat loss hack we've ever seen. Think about all the benefits we've mentioned with eating fruit, all the longevity hormones, metabolic benefits, and so forth. When you fruit fast, which means eat nothing but fruit and fruit juice for a whole day, and then you go to bed, no fat, no protein. When you drop protein and fat through the floor, you create this really high metabolic state in your metabolism that starts to rapidly burn body fat. Because again, if your body's saturated with glycogen, your body doesn't need to be catabolic for any reason and eat away at your muscle. And so fat becomes, as part of the Randall cycle, fat becomes used as a fuel source to burn the actual stored body fat that you have. So one other thing you can do, guys, if you want to have a really big cheat meal and just not worry about it at all, is say, look, today I'm just going to pig out all day and I'm on vacation, I'm on a cruise or whatever. I'm going to just pig out, have a blast. And then the next day, full fruit fast day. And again, it's like, it's so amazing the way you look and feel when you wake up after doing this. It goes against everything we've been taught about diet and fitness and so forth, that you can't feel good after a big cheat meal. You're going to feel sluggish and all that. But when your body's primed from following these guidelines, it actually doesn't work out that way. At least not for James and I. We have a cheat meal and feel amazing the next day. And sometimes we say, okay, I'm just going to eat fruit today. But there's so many ways you can sort of hack the diet and modulate it for your preferences. But if you're trying to lose body fat, guys, the best thing you could do is do like 1 to 3 days in a row of fruit fasting. That way you're not starving yourself. Your body's full of glycogen, which means you're not going to lose any muscle mass. We showed a study that 5 weeks on a high carbohydrate diet, the subjects didn't lose any lean body mass, eating almost only carbohydrates for 5 weeks. So no, you're not going to lose muscle mass eating fruit for 2 to 3 days in a row. And it's just a lot easier than a water fast in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff, Aaron. With the cheat days, I would just, we all fall off the bandwagon from time to time, especially around family. Don't beat yourself up. Just get back on the shred train the next day, and just try not to have 2 days in a row where you really have a cheat day. Keep it to 1 day. Have fun 1 day a week even, or 1 day every other week. Celebrate with your family. But then just get back on the train. This is a long-term lifestyle. You're building up, stacking wins over a long period of time, building momentum, and then you'll start building self-control, and you could get to these different parties or trips or family events and have more self-control. There was a question about, what do I feed my dog? I honestly feed my dog what I eat. So when I make my stir fries for dinner, I'll make extra and give her a bowl. I usually feed her 1 or 2 eggs a day. And then there's also a bunch of plant-based dog feeds you could do. Our friend Cam has a dog who's like 12, super healthy. I think it's been vegetarian its whole life.
His whole life, yeah.
Yeah, so it is possible. No, my dog Cannoli has eaten regular, meat dog food for most of her life, and now she's transitioning more to a harm-free form of eating. But I find she really loves eggs, and she's doing great with eggs. So I'm going to keep that up. There was one other question. Sorry.
I was going to say, Cam's dog is 12, has never had meat at all, only vegetarian its whole life. And you've met his dog, James. His dog is 12, and it's like the most energetic dog I've ever met. Just happy, just running around. Like, he looks like he's a puppy still at 12 years old.
Yeah, it was amazing. There was another question about dealing with your family as you transition to this lifestyle. And that, I don't know about you, Aaron, but dealing with friends and family and being made fun of, or like people taunting you, this is something usually every single vegan or vegetarian deals with. People think you're crazy. People think you're going to die. We've dealt with it all, and it can be very frustrating. And usually it's people who are much less or more unhealthy than you are, or very overweight. It almost always have people who are like very overweight being like, James, you're going to be so unhealthy. I'm like, dude, look in the mirror. No offense.
Take the plank out of your own eye, brother.
Yeah. So we totally understand the frustration with that. But, it's, if you lead with love and understanding, and just really it's their own BS. It's the plank in their own eye. And they're projecting a lot onto you, because everyone knows that killing innocent animals is not a good thing to do. It's not a moral thing to do. Every single person in the world knows that deep down inside their heart, and they project their anger because they know that they're living out of alignment onto you. You're the mirror that's showing them their own issue. So
Right.
remember that. Don't get mad. Remember that everyone's on their own journey, and just be proud of yourself for taking the step to do what's right.
Isn't it funny, James, how any carnivore meat eater that we have this conversation with, when we point out the obvious spiritual ethics of flesh consumption, how it's totally unjustifiable by anyone's standards, right? Everybody agrees, I don't want someone to do harm to me, so I shouldn't harm anyone else. And yet we totally harm animals, no problem. We point this out and they say, well, plants feel too, so you're just as bad as I am. You never get carnivores that say, no, it's not wrong to murder animals against their will. It's ethically good to do so. I've never once heard a carnivore try to justify that. They'll always just say, it's an unfortunate reality of our world. We just got to do it. Can't not do it. Plants feel too. And it's like they're just trying to drag you down to their level, but they're not trying to come up to a higher level themselves. And so we say, no, plants don't feel like animals feel. That's a laughable presupposition. Plants don't even have a nervous system, y'all. How are you going to feel pain without a brain, let alone a nervous system? How are you going to psychologically suffer without a psyche? Does that mean plants aren't sentient? No, of course they're sentient. They have their own kind of intelligence, but it's more of a diffused consciousness and awareness. And in order to feel the kind of physiological pain and suffering, as far as all of our scientific evidence shows, we can't think of a way that physical pain would be possible without a nervous system. How are you going to have electrical signals with no neurons, right? So to say that slaughtering a cow or a goat against its will and eating its flesh is the same as biting into an orange or a bell pepper is an absurd argument, obviously, on its face. But I think also ethically, it's like, doesn't this show who has the higher moral position? That a meat eater will never say, oh, no, it's very spiritually good to murder animals and eat them. They'll just say, well, you're just as bad as me, and beg the question.
Yeah, you'll see all kinds of mental gymnastics. It's really remarkable. And you'll see people who are very intelligent otherwise just short circuit when this topic comes up. So it's really a great exercise in patience and love and loving people who disagree with you. I know it's tested me. There's been a few times where I felt very frustrated and alone and misunderstood. But, the best thing you could do is be as healthy and vibrant as possible. More than anything you could ever say is how you look and your vibe. So focus on that. And then there were people who thought I was crazy when I started, and now they're on this diet because just watching Aaron and I, the energy we have, the essence, that will convert people to the cause more than anything you could ever say.
Yeah. When we posted the Jesus diet episodes, especially the second one, where we showed our bloods and workout footage and stuff like that, I had like a number of my friends here from Austin, and some of them, like you guys would know if I mentioned their names, blowing me up, being like, dude, you look amazing. How are you eating? How do I start this diet? Because I think spiritually minded people who eat flesh, at least for me personally, like I knew it was not justifiable for a long time before I finally stopped eating meat. I just tried to pacify myself. But I think spiritually conscious people of any regard would all agree, like it can't possibly be, according to God's nature, that we murder animals against their will and eat them. There's nothing about that could possibly be positive or service to others oriented. It's always service to self oriented, right? Well, come on, Aaron, I need my nutrients. Okay, so because you need some extra saturated fat in your diet, that animal doesn't deserve to live anymore. Not a very justifiable position. So this person who's been eating the Jesus diet for 2 weeks, Sully, says, I've been eating this way for 2 weeks. I've dropped 13 pounds and can't sit still. I'm so full of energy. This is a very common response we hear from people, especially people who need to lose weight. They just become shocked at how fast they drop body fat. And so congrats to you, Sully, for the results you've gotten so far. We are so excited, you guys, to do this Jesus 40-day challenge, Jesus Diet 40-day challenge, because we've got 2 tiers that you can choose from, a beginner tier and the advanced tier, or the full complete package. And so we're going to let you choose which challenge to take up. But essentially, it's going to be 40 days of you committing to the Jesus diet protocol. So no cheat meals. You're going to stick to the diet. We're going to give you a simple exercise regimen, such as 10,000 steps a day. And I think we just said, James, like 3 days a week, do some kind of body strengthening exercise, at least 3 days a week. So like yoga, plyometrics, weightlifting, kettlebell circuit, do something that builds up your body, your strength, your muscles, right? And that's basically it for 40 days. And we're going to do a weight loss challenge. If you're somebody who's looking to lose weight, we're going to have you take a picture of yourself, 2 pictures of yourself, one before picture in the mirror. And then you're going to take a picture of your feet on the scale, showing the weight on the scale. And then you're going to do the same thing at the end of the 40 days. You're going to show a mirror selfie picture of your after shot and then the weight on the scale after. So we get both of those, pictures side by side. And we're going to do a top 3 prize winner. So if you're in the top 3, you're going to get a t-shirt, a Jesus Way t-shirt. You're going to get some organic muscle supplements and swag. And then if you win first place, whoever loses the most body fat or weight in this 40-day challenge, we're going to bring you onto the podcast and we're going to interview you about your weight loss journey over the last 40 days. We want to ask you questions about how you felt, what showed up for you, what things you learned, insights you gained, and how it worked so well for you. So we're really excited for this, and we'll probably announce it in another week or 2. We got to get some of the logistics squared away. But it's going to be a simple PDF you guys can download that has the full challenge on it, and you make the commitment. But let us not forget, James, as we close this live today, that the biggest commitment you make to the Jesus diet is first the spiritual commitment, right? You are consecrating yourself to God in a unique way when you take on this diet regimen. You are saying, God, I understand that your law is love, for the law is one. And so the golden rule, as Jesus said, the single greatest commandment of all that fulfills the entire law and the prophets is this: do unto others as you wish others to do unto you. Love God, love your neighbor. This is the whole axiom around which the Jesus diet revolves. We have to commit to living a no-harm lifestyle as much as possible. That doesn't mean we don't step on bugs sometimes. Accidents happen, things happen. That's fine. We're just trying to have our intention be as aligned with natural law as possible, as a way of worshiping God with our lifestyle and saying, God, my spiritual development is way more important than anything else in this life. Oh, I'm afraid to go off meat because I don't think if I lower my saturated fat, it's going to be bad. Sorry, that's not more important than not contributing to genocide of God's sentient creatures. We make the golden rule the highest standard of all. And we say, God, I'm going to follow this rule of doing no harm. And if that causes any kind of detriment to my life, which of course it won't, but even if I'm afraid it will, you'll provide a solution. You'll show me the way I can eat, the way I can live that makes up the deficit, right? But I commit first and foremost to the spiritual principle that Jesus laid out. That's why it's called the Jesus diet. It's oriented around the golden rule, the greatest commandment of all, that Jesus said is the only way to eternal life, is to love God with all your heart by loving others as yourself. And yes, that includes even animals and all sentient creatures. Think about how absurd it is, James, to argue that God created a universe where we have to honor other human beings as the highest, most sacred thing, do no harm, but you can absolutely torture and slaughter and genocide animals. No problem. God doesn't give a shit about them. It's laughably absurd, right? Of course, life is life to God. The universe doesn't differentiate. Human life, sacred and valuable. Love it, cherish it. Animals, they're nothing. Kill them, torture them, drink their blood. This is how a meat eater thinks, right? That, oh, people, yeah, we should be kind to people, but animals, they're lower than us, so do whatever we want. That is the demonic mindset that has infected the world that we are trying to uproot out of our own minds. All life is sacred to God because God is life. So if it has life in it, James, it has God in it. And so we're going to honor that life by loving it as we love ourselves, by doing no harm to wherever we find the life force energy of God animating something. We do our best to honor it as we would want to be honored.
Yeah. And this is our way of healing the world. I mean, imagine the karmic implications. And I don't know about you, but I really believe that actions have consequences and that there is spiritual implications to eating animals, and it potentially implicates these reasons why there's, evil power and control systems over humanity in the world. It's almost like there's a plan to treat humans like animals are treated. So I always say, we need to treat animals how we would like to be treated if there was a higher species, a species of higher intelligence that we were dealing with. And there potentially are in the spiritual world. We're dealing
Yeah.
with principalities and spiritual beings, and perhaps even interdimensional beings. And some of them are benevolent, and some of them are malevolent. And those malevolent beings that feed on humanity, manipulate humanity, feed on our fear and anxiety and dis-ease. It's the same thing that we do to animals. So if we want to heal ourselves, that process involves us healing our relationship with animals. And then we can truly build a better world.
Beautifully said, man.
Oh,
This
I
is
can't
an
hear you,
interesting
Aaron.
suggestion. What's that? Sorry, I missed you there. This is a good suggestion. Maybe we do a female winner and a male winner.
Oh,
That could be fun. Yeah, we'll definitely take that into consideration. There's so many good questions in here, guys. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up there for today. Man, I just want to keep answering these questions. It's so much fun. We'll go ahead and wrap it up there. If there's any major questions you don't feel like we dealt with today, put them in the comments below on the YouTube video, and we'll see if we can get into the comments a little bit and help you guys out. Otherwise, we can just do another live stream Q&A next week on the Jesus diet. Because again, we really just feel that this is such a pivotal piece to the Jesus way philosophy, that if we want to embody the Jesus way, embodiment means you live the way you speak and believe, right? The things that you say you believe. Oh yeah, I believe in doing no harm. We should be loving to everybody. Well, then you need to live your life according to that and not just say that it's a belief for you, right? One of the best ways to do that is through our diet and our lifestyle. That if we live a diet and lifestyle that does contribute to harm, then we're kind of hypocritical in that regard, right? So we're not really embodied in the Jesus way if we are violating it the way we eat and live our life. So in terms of embodying the Jesus way, when you commit to this golden rule axiom, guys, we talked about this, James, on the first podcast, but a whole new spiritual dimension awakens in you when you fully commit to doing no harm. I told this story, I think, on one of the podcasts, but one of the first ways, James, that I noticed this immense shift that took place when I made this spiritual commitment. I will never eat flesh again. I will never contribute to the harm of animals again. It was like 2 days later, I was making coffee in the morning and there was a gnat flying around. And just like I always would do in my life, I went to go swat at the gnat or the fly. And the weirdest thing happened, where I went to swat and something stopped my hand mid-strike. And it stunned me. And I sat there going, who or what just made me stop swatting at this fly? Because my conscious mind said, get out of here, stupid fly. But a deeper essence within me that had been now given permission to awaken more, my consciousness said, no, we don't do that anymore. We don't harm living creatures. And although it was not a conscious thought, it was a heartfelt, subconscious kind of process that played out that just said, nope, that's actually not in alignment with my highest ideal anymore. And I actually teared up when it happened, James, because it was such a beautiful moment that my own sort of conscience prevented me from violating my own belief system, because it was a true, sincere shift that I made, right? The promise I made to God was real, and my whole being responded in this way. And the way it makes you feel connected to life, the way that it opens your awareness to the sacredness of life, right, James? You see it in insects, you see it in the flowers, you see it in animals, you see it in babies, children, clouds. You just start noticing the innocence, purity, the sacredness of God's creation. And you realize, like, oh my gosh, I've been so blind that I've been contributing to murdering these animals and the environment and stuff. And it's all just teeming with the life, the love, the energy of God. And I just didn't see it before. Why didn't you see it before? Because you hadn't made this commitment yet. You had not consecrated your awareness to God in this regard. And so your mind doesn't let you see it. So we always have to make the shift internally first, right? Before the effects of that shift will start to show themselves. And so when people often say, well, I don't see any God energy in plants and animals and stuff, who cares? Yeah, because you don't believe that it's there. So when you start to believe that it's there and say, God, I want to see it. I want to feel the sacredness of all life. I want to feel your presence indwelling in every sentient being I meet, palpably. Please show me, God. And you make this commitment. I will not harm any creatures ever again. And then, and only then, does that fourth density awareness start streaming into your mind. And you actually do feel the love, the connection, the sacredness of every being you encounter. And there is nothing better than that, James. There's nothing better than truly living from heart-based consciousness. It's what the entire Jesus Way philosophy is about, to be able to live as Jesus did from the heart. So I'll go ahead and close there and give you the last chance to say anything you want to say, James, before we close this podcast. Nothing?
Cool. Sorry if there's a little delay. I can't hear you on StreamYard, so I'm listening on YouTube, so it's a little delayed.
Oh, that's what it is.
Now I could hear myself. So now I'm hearing myself. Sorry, y'all. Anyways, this was so much fun. I saw some of the recommendations in the chat for the challenge. Perhaps we can do, one challenge for gaining muscle or recomposition, one for weight loss, because some people are
Nice.
different places. And maybe we could have a male and female winner. So we're super excited for this. We're putting together the meal plans and the workout plans and the challenge. So we're going to continue full steam ahead with the Jesus diet because people are on fire with it. And I truly believe that this is something whose time has come and that this can sweep around the world and truly change humanity and change all of our relationships with God and help reestablish the kingdom of heaven on earth. It's a big big goal, but I just feel it in my heart that its time has come.
Yeah, it's part of the philosophy we laid out, James, in the last episode of just move towards truth. God doesn't require absolute perfection at all times. That's a religious mindset. God just wants to see that your heart is right. And this is everything Jesus taught in his parables, is that God just wants your heart. God wants honesty, truthfulness, integrity, repentance. And so if you're just trying to move towards truth, you're pleasing the heart of God. And when you're ready to go to the next step, moving towards truth, your soul will let you know. You can do it gradually, right? It doesn't have to be this immediate thing. But if we want to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth, as you said, James, we got to start making those steps towards truth. And as far as we're concerned, I mean, there's a lot of awful things happening in our world today. And we want to heal this planet more than anything else. But probably the number one sickness on this planet is the way we treat animals and just easily castigate them to lives of horrendous suffering, which we would never, it'd be a nightmare to consider putting humans in the same condition we put animals. And so if we can all contribute to alleviating that enormous amount of suffering that's taking place on our planet, I really think, James, it would have the greatest boosting effect to our planetary frequency. And so we want to say a true thank you from our hearts to yours for everybody that is compelled by this message, that sees the truth of the philosophy behind it and makes the commitment to do no harm in your diet and lifestyle any longer. And we want you guys to thrive with optimal health. And that's why we're presenting this option for you as the Jesus diet, to try this out and see if it works for you, because it sure has worked for us and changed our lives for the better in every conceivable way. And we want that for you guys as well. So we'll keep you updated in the next few episodes on the 40-day Jesus Diet Challenge. We're going to have to do some ideating and brainstorming, get it nailed down. Might even do a poll on Instagram to get your guys' opinion on how we could program it. But yeah, be on the lookout for that. And we can't wait to do this 40-day challenge with you guys and just see all the incredible benefits, the weight loss, the energy, the lean body mass, all the benefits we've talked about. We want to live it with you guys in real time. And of course, have the chance to actually come on the podcast and talk with us about your journey. So thank you all for tuning in today. We'll go ahead and wrap it up there. But as always, love God, love people, go live the Jesus way. And we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Jesus Way podcast. Peace and love, y'all.